Hello there, welcome back to Grow with Alan, episode 5. Now we're a week late with episode 5. It was blowing a gale last week. In fact, it was windier than a house full of students who believe that the only thing they can possibly cook is baked beans. So, no, it wasn't going to be any good for sound, so didn't do anything. So this week, what are we going to be doing? We're going to be planting carrots. It's April, it's Easter Sunday. In fact, that's what's left of my Easter egg so far. Very good. The kids are in the other room, collapsed in front of the TV, having eaten too much of theirs. We're also going to be planting some beetroot, and inside the fridge we have larkspur. Now, I grew this for a Big Allotment Challenge last year, and a few people asked how I grew it, so I'm going to grow some more. And you know, like some people like to dive in and break through the ice and go swimming in the winter. For some obscure reason, larkspur is the flower equivalent. It likes a good spell in the freezers to get it going. Now, had they been filming Big Allotment Challenge this year, I could have maybe just popped down to the filming plot and just wafted it in front of famed Prince's breath, and that would have done the trick. But no, a week in the freezer. Now, let's get outside and get them in the ground. Okay, these are my larkspur seeds, and this year I am growing Thompson & Morgan's improved mix. Last year I grew tall hyacinth mix down at the plot, and they grew really well. And I'm actually not going to do what it says on the packet here, because when I read the back it says plant them 6 millimetres deep in the soil. Well, last year what I actually did was I just raked them into a finely raked soil and just left them to it. They do take a while to germinate though, so it's quite difficult to actually work out which are the weeds and which are these that are coming up, but they've got little pointy leaves. So literally all I'm going to do with these is get the packet, tip the lot on my hands. Oh, it's quite a lot actually. Might be a bit keen to put them all in. There we are. They're a little bit like allium seeds, quite sort of blacky. I don't know, onion seeds perhaps, and I'm literally just going to sprinkle some over the surface like this, and just put a few more in. You can always thin these things out, so there's no harm in getting a bit carried away. And I'm putting these in because in the veg plot area, because I'm figuring that I'll take them in the house, and Mrs. T will be very happy with me. So literally that's all I'm going to do. Drop them in the soil like that. Take the rest of them back inside, what's left of them, and then just get the rake and just literally just run it over the top like this, and just so the seeds are just lightly tucked into the soil. And last year, that's pretty much all I did for my larkspur. Some of the other competitors down at Big Allotment started them off in the greenhouse, and they don't work really well like that. They like to be put straight into the bed that they're actually going to be growing in. So I'm going to leave them like that, and once they're through to a decent level, I can thin them out. But to get them going, yeah, I mean, what could be easier? That's it. Now, what was I going to do next? Carrots. Let's go and get some carrots in the ground. Okay, carrots. So you want to be pulling some of these and dribbling them in butter on the dinner table. They're not actually the easiest things to grow because of a pest called the carrot root fly, which basically comes along, burrows its way into the ground, the larvae of this fly, and eats through all the roots, which is obviously wrecks your crop. But the good news is they are terrible at flying. They are like the Wright brothers aircraft of flies. They get about this high off the ground. So you've got an option, which is to surround your bed of carrots with some fleece, horticultural fleece, so these things go, can't do it. Or you can cheat like me and buy something called Carrot Flyaway F1 Hybrid. They're not maybe quite as tasty as some of the other carrots, but you don't have to worry about putting fleece around. And if you're growing carrots for the first time, I think these are the ones you should try. And that's why I'm going to grow them again this year. And carrots are really one of the easiest things to grow if you can avoid the carrot root fly. So you need soil which is relatively well, you need to have it quite deeply dug, and make sure it's nice and weed free. Just draw out a little drill like this, and make sure that you've removed as many of the real large stones as possible, because if the carrot roots hit the stones, then inevitably they're going to get a little bit bent up. The thing with carrots is you can just keep sowing a few during the season, and then you can just keep pulling them, sow a few more. So I'm doing these little short rows again, as I'm doing for everything this year, and I'll just keep successionally sowing them as the year goes on. Right, here we are. The seeds themselves are, again, tiny little things, not terribly interesting for you, so I'm not going to do a big close-up on them. But yeah, I'm just literally just going to sprinkle a few along the row and see how we go with that. Now, I have to put my foot on the soil, which I don't like doing, but it's the only way to make this happen here. There we are. So that is the carrots in, and just to cover them up, I'll just use this little seed drill again. There's a guy who turns up at the local fete and he restores old tools, and I just bought this off him for the grand sum of £3, and it's actually quite useful. Now that's carrots done. So literally that's all I'm going to do with the carrots, just leave them in like that. Secondly, we have beetroot. Red Ace F1 hybrid. Grown these before, grow really well. Again, very similar to the carrots, you just draw out a nice little drill like that. Just pop them in and cover them up, and that's it. I once went to a nightclub in Greek Street called the Beetroot Club. Beetroot Club. Confused me as a gardener. These seeds are quite large in comparison to the carrot seeds. They're quite big and chunky. Corky, I think is how people describe them. Looking a bit corky. I want to try and spread these out reasonably well, because you can always thin them out and enjoy them as small beets, but at the same time it's a bit of a waste of seed to put them in too close together, and they'll come up quite easily. Oop, I have to step on this again. Just drop them into the road like that. Oh, could be painful. Drop those in like that. Just put the rest back in the packet and see if I can actually get them in the packet this week. Look at that. Oh, all right, some of them went in there. It's not bad, is it, for me? And then just rake it over like that. That is all you need to do for your beetroot. Just make sure they don't dry out, the beetroot and the carrots, until they're getting going, until they've got themselves a good water supply, because apparently it's going to be 18 degrees tomorrow, which is positively spring-like. I don't know. Now, what we're going to do next is go and have a look at the sugar snap peas that I planted in week 1, because it's time to expose them from the cloche and get them planting their sticks. I seem to spend all my time bending down in these films. I'm going to have to work this filming out a little bit better, aren't I? Now, back in week 1, I think it was, or week 2, I sowed some sugar snap peas, sugar snap pea Oregon, underneath some cloches. The soil's a little bit chilly, so sowing direct was a bit tricky, so I stuck them under the cloches, but here's what we have produced so far. Let's get this piece of plant cloche out the way. Oh, don't know whether that's in one piece anymore. And these are, here they are, look at those, they're doing really well, aren't they? There's a few weeds there, been encouraged as well, but you know, that's great progress. Now these peas need a little bit of support. They're going to grow to be about, probably about 3.5 foot, maybe a metre tall. They're not terribly tall plants. They are, if you like my alderman peas, which I'm growing in the greenhouse, I'm in those pots, they're going to be, you know, 6-7 foot. They're sort of Jeremy Clarkson height, whereas these ones are definitely Richard Hammond height. So we need to give them a bit of support to make sure they've got something to climb up. And they've got little tendrils on them, which will help them cling onto things. So I'm just literally going to stick a load of sticks in. So you're not going to see my head as I do this, which is probably lucky. But I'm just going to put these round about them. They're just twiggy twigs. That's all they are. In fact, these are offcuts from our Bramley trees when I pruned them last year. I'll just put them in like this, and the peas will be fine. They'll ramble their way up them in time, and we should get a decent crop. So it looks quite attractive, this as well. And the other good thing about putting some sticks in like this is the birds do like the taste of pea seedling, and this just discourages them a little bit. It just keeps them away until the plants have really got themselves going. Whoop. If you're thinking about growing peas, sugar snap peas all year long as well, once you've got a crop to this sort of size, it's a good time to start thinking about putting a second lot in the ground as well, because that's how you end up with a nice you end up with a nice steady supply of these things right through the year. I'm going to leave these a little bit longer before I put my next lot in, because we like them but we don't love them, these things. So there we are, I'm just literally just sticking a few bits of old cane in the ground like this, and that should do the trick. Might go and find a few more in a minute, but just literally just roughly in the ground like that, and that should do those peas. They'll just ramble up though there, and you just come along and pick them. Don't think there'll be a great deal more needs doing to them. We don't have a problem with pheasants here like we did at Maple Durham last year, so yeah, pretty straightforward. Also underneath the next cloche, let me see if I can just zoom it in a little bit, see if you can see it better. There we are. These are the broad beans that we put in at the same time. So I think you can just see them through the pea sticks here. Put those in at the same time underneath the cloches, so I think they can come out into the sunshine as well. I can use the cloches for something else. Right, next up, I just want to give you a bit of a tour of the greenhouse, show you what's going on in there before we retreat to the shed and do a little bit of potting on. So last autumn I sowed some broad bean imperial long pod in the greenhouse, and you can just see the amount of growth on those compared with the ones that are outside this time of the year. I'm having to leave the greenhouse door open though, so you can just see that all the flowers on those are coming on really well. I'm having to leave the doors open though to the greenhouse, which is a bit of a mixed blessing, because I need to get the flies and the bees in here to pollinate them, otherwise I'm not going to get any beans at all. But that's a bit of a downside when on the other side of the greenhouse I've got all the seed trays. So I kind of want the heat, but I'm having to leave the door open because I want some beans. So maybe my plan's not entirely without flaws. So I'll just give you a quick tour of what's going on in the greenhouse. Just over there at the back are the leeks, which I planted a couple of weeks ago. You can just see them peeping through now, beginning to like little grassy things. They can stay in there for a few more weeks until they get going a little bit better. And just coming around here next to them, these are lettuce that are just beginning to poke through. And round here in front, we've got, nearest the camera, we've got the cauliflowers. Next to them, we've got the kale, parsley's finally poking through, and some more lettuce at the back. So doing pretty well there. Over here, these are the cosmos, which I split up into a tray like this and just potted on. And I'll show you how I'm going to do that in a moment with some Rudbeckia, which I've got going on. But they'll just stay in that tray now until they're big enough to go out and there's no real chance of a really cold night just finishing them off. Tucked down the bottom here, these are the alderman peas, which are just beginning to poke through. Now I want to pop those outside. Those are the ones that are going to be the Jeremy Clarkson 6'5" ones, although they won't actually punch anybody, or at least I hope not anyway. Otherwise I have to sack them and send them to another channel. And then just coming up to the top here, we have, these are the purple prince zinnias, which I've just potted on in separate pots. Again, these stay in here until the risk of frost is gone. And at the back, these are some Rudbeckia. You can just see those just potted on into a tray there just to keep them going. And over here are the tomatoes, which are, you can just see them on the left there, and some pretty disappointing sweet peas on the right, where I guess the seeds didn't like me throwing them all over the shed floor before I planted them. They just don't seem to have done very well at all. I have got some other things I've stuck in trays down here, which are just sort of various flower seeds, which my daughter's picked up. I think it's got some asters in here, nothing to show yet, so not very interesting at all. So anyway, now I think it's time to retreat to the shed and pot on the Rudbeckia. Actually, before we retreat to the shed, I'll just show you the garden. It's really beginning to come to life now. You can see the daffs are just all coming out over there. There's the got the ponds over there in the corner there, which has finally got some fish in it. They've got some beautiful yellow blooms coming out over here. In fact, it's really coming to life. If I just swing around here a little bit, you can get a better view of the greenhouse and the beds just over here. Let me just stroll along so you get a better view of what's actually going on in the bigger context to the garden. There's a few leeks there still to finish off, which I think we're going to be having some a leek risotto tomorrow. But yeah, you can really see that everything's beginning to come to life, which is rather lovely, isn't it? So anyway, back to those Rudbeckia. Speaking of coming to life, I have just spotted this on the shed. The first I think that's a peacock butterfly of the year. Very early to see one of these. Easter Sunday, the first peacock. Isn't that marvellous? Okay, it's time to do some potting on of the Rudbeckia. These have, ignore these ones here, these are purple prints. These are the Rudbeckia here, and in fact, I shall come much closer so you can get a really good look at them. So I just dusted them into the top of the soil here. You can see they've just sprung through, lots of little tiny plants. Now it's time to split those up to give them more room to grow and let them grow on in a tray of compost before we can actually get them outside. So, what do you need? Ta-da! One of these. It's really easy, to be honest, but it makes growing things on like this, and potting them on and growing them on a bit like this, makes all the difference in terms of the quality of the plant that you end up with before it goes outside, because it means that you've got something with well-established roots that's had plenty of time and opportunity to get access to a decent amount of soil to grow those roots into. Actually, I could probably do with a little bit more soil in there. Let's see what we've got. Here we are. I'm just using, this is John Innes number 2, which a bit of a revelation for me actually. I hadn't used it before until last year. I tend to use multi-purpose compost, but it is much better for getting things going. So I just smooth that off like that and then get the Rudbeckia. So they are literally tiny little things. Let me see if I can use my grubby finger to zoom in a little bit like this, and you can see what's going on a bit better. Actually, you can't see what's going on a bit better, can you? Let's zoom back out again. Oh, well, there we are. So I'm just going to use the plant label here, which says Rudbeckia, funnily enough, and I'm going to plunge into the soil with the blunt end of it and just lift out a little plant. And always handle each plant. I think I've just killed that one. Oh well, there's always one place for that, the shed floor with everything else. Always handle the plant by the leaf. Never handle them by the stalk or the root, because if you damage those, then obviously you damage the ability of the plant to grow. Whereas if you just handle the leaf, a little bit of damage on the leaf, not going to matter. So once I've prized one out, let me just sit those over there. I'm just going to create a little hole with my finger, drop it in like that, and just tuck it up like that, and that will grow on beautifully. So you just keep repeating the process of just lifting out plants carefully from the soil like that. With the root, you can see the root on that one quite clearly. There we are, he's going along nicely, and just making a little hole, and maybe about, let me see, we've got a tray this size, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, we'll probably get 5 along here, 3 rows of 5, so quite a lot of plants. Just drop that in there and just leave it like that, and I'm just going to repeat that process until I've filled the tray up with plants. That will then be, we'll go into the greenhouse and just let it grow on for 3 or 4 weeks until the plants are a decent size and the risk of frost is gone, and we can put them outside in the garden. Right, now, not much more to do for this week, except to tell you what we're going to be doing next week. Next week is officially French bean week. It's getting a little bit warmer. I've got 2 varieties of French bean I've been planting. This one here is French bean Ferrari. It's a little dwarf plant, it's a heavy cropper. If you haven't tried it before, you should. It's by far the best I've ever grown. So, and it's got a cool name, hasn't it? French bean Ferrari, can't be bad. Don't know how the French feel about their French beans being named after an Italian, maybe. And more traditionally, no, actually no, this isn't either. French bean Algarve. These are very different. So these ones here to these ones here. These ones here produce those little skinny pods that we kind of think of as French beans. Whereas these ones here, they look a little bit more like runner beans, big pods, but they're fairly stringless and they're sort of flat. And the beans inside are a little bit larger. And some people, I'm sure Raymond Blanc would just take the beans out, but actually you can eat the whole thing as well. And they're climbing. So they will reach, well, last year when I grew them, they grew about 8 foot. So a foot and a bit taller than me. Again, I'm going to successionally sow these, but I'm going to get them going in the greenhouse next week. And also, it's time to get all those things that inundate the neighbours going. Courgettes, pumpkins, cucumbers, summer squash. Prolific growers, Great time of year to get them going. And yeah, that's what we do. Look, have a great week in the garden. Thanks so much for watching. I'm really appreciating all the comments I'm getting from people on the questions. Happy to answer those. And yeah, see you next week. Have a good week gardening.